Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Jamf After Dark podcast, a podcast to introduce you to the people at Jamf, learn about what we're up to when it comes to managing and securing Apple devices, along with what is happening in the IT landscape. I'm your co-host, Kat Garbis, joined by co-host Josh Thornton.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Kat. How you doing today?
It's been a little stressful, not going to lie. Pet ownership, you know how that goes, so that can always be a little much at times, but we love them. How about you? How's your day going?
It's going great. I've never really dug much into Claude as a service. I've spent a lot of time with OpenAI products and locally hosting LLM tools. Today and in this past few have been like digging in deeper, and it's been kind of fun.
You've been far more productive and working to build on skills and learn new things than me. All I did was go online shopping to buy cute outfits for my niece. But one of the websites was I don't know, it was one of those, is this dress gonna show up the way I hope it shows up for her? Or is this gonna be one of those not quite like the image advertised? But there's if only there was a way to trust and verify things out there. But sometimes we need other solutions to help us with trusting and verifying things.
Kat, your segues are always my favorite. This episode we're really excited because we've got a very, very special guest, and they're joining us to talk about one of the most exciting and talked about innovations from WWDC this year, and that's Platform SSO. So we've got Dan Hefley joining us from Okta. Dan, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, and can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, awesome to be here. Dan Hefley, Senior Product Manager at Okta, on our Okta Device Access portfolio, which includes things like Desktop MFA for macOS and Windows, as well as Platform SSO, which obviously we're here to talk about, and then Device-Bound SSO, which is our newest innovation. I was just going to say, Kat, real fast, like one of the things that I got recently over the holidays from a possibly sketchy site that I think everyone here would love is it's called Mac Lock, and it's this little 1980s like Mac, and it's basically just an alarm clock, Raspberry Pi kind of thing, but it's really cool. But it was definitely touch and go if it was going to be real or not.
That sounds amazing. Did you receive it yet?
Yeah, it was good.
It's good? Okay.
Yeah.
It was like the product. Sketchy websites, man, it's a thing. Before we though talk about PSSO and identity and all those good things, we need to talk about your background. All the race cars, like, are they all Legos? Like, talk to us a little bit about that before we dive into the content, because everyone who's watching is going to be wanting to know about everything behind you real quick.
Yeah, they're all Legos. They're all Lego cars. I guess in true product manager sense, I like building things and just like being hands-on, getting into it. So, that's kind of what I do to relax when I'm not building things in my day job.
I love it. Real quick, but we have to go down this rabbit hole. Which is your favorite that you've built that's behind you?
I'm biased because of our recent sponsorship, but the McLaren F1 behind me is probably the coolest because it's probably 3 feet long. So it's really cool, and being a Formula One fan, it's just perfect.
I really want to do one of those experiences where you drive the fast cars. I am not really a Lego person. I don't like building things. I'd rather pay someone to build things for me. That's Legos, bookshelves, tables, like anything. But I do like to drive fast cars, so I definitely want to drive a McLaren one day. Haven't driven that. On a one of the JNUCs, I did not expense this. I want to put that in the recording. I did not expense this, but I rented a Maserati because we were in California, and I was like, why wouldn't I like rent a fast car and just kind of zoom around a little bit? So that was fun. It was just kind of zipping around the San Diego mountainside in a Maserati that Jamf did not pay for, to be clear. So
Appreciate the clarity on that.
welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here, Dan. So Okta's been around a few years. A lot of our listeners are probably also big Okta fans as well. Before we just dive into Platform SSO and all of that, who is Okta for those who are maybe just getting started with, learning about your solution, just getting started with maybe Apple and PSSO? Let's start really small real quick. Who's Okta?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you asked because as we had this conversation, I attended JNUC recently this fall, and we had this conversation a lot because Okta is known as identity and, what are you doing at JNUC kind of conversations. So Okta is the world's leading identity provider that's a neutral vendor agnostic platform. So allowing you to work with the best of breed. So partners like Jamf in the MDM space and working together to create a more end-to-end holistic security solution from a vendor neutral perspective. And we've been expanding over the last few years into things like Platform SSO and really leaning into the idea that devices and identities really go hand in hand these days. Identities aren't just the you are who you say you are with a username and password like you used to 20 years ago. Things have really evolved.
Yeah, and I think, you just mentioned Okta and security. And I think that identity and security go hand in hand. And at Jamf, we've talked for a long time about how important device management is to security. And security is not just what EDR tool do you have running on your endpoint, it's really thinking about the nuts and bolts from start to finish. And I think that's so important for our listeners to remember. Like everything that we're doing and how we do it together increases the security level of your fleet.
Yeah, I actually came from an MDM admin background before joining Okta. So, it's one of those things where I've seen it day in, day out of the identity is closely tied to the device and you can't have a device without an identity.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good segue into defining Platform SSO. For those who are maybe just getting their feet wet with it, what is it in your words? How are you helping identity gaps for macOS?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Platform SSO is a super exciting framework that Apple announced a few years ago and has been iterating on it every year since then. And we'll get into some of the more exciting stuff that just came out with 26 here in a little bit. But essentially, it's a like, core macOS framework built into the OS that IDPs can build on to allow end users to have a more seamless SSO experience built in within the OS. So you're not adding additional tools or things in the past. Like Jamf Connect, for example, lived in this space in this gray area for decades and was one of the top tools. And now we're seeing kind of, we talked about JNUC, the next evolution of that, and really the modern way forward is Platform SSO and really bringing that enterprise identity to the Macs.
Yeah, I appreciate that call out to Jamf Connect. And nowadays it's known as Jamf Connect Basic that's providing that identity sync capability. And it really existed to solve a significant hurdle that organizations faced in bringing identity to their Mac fleet. And now that Apple's really addressed that with Platform SSO, if you're using an identity provider like Okta that really embraces those features and functionality as Apple releases them, plus something like Jamf for Mac, those capabilities all come together to really create the best and most secure experience for organizations and their end users and their admins. And it's just so powerful now.
Yeah, and I think to Kat's other question around, why was it created, what does it help solve, is really around the SSO experience and providing that on Mac OS. So, Windows, for example, for years has had other solutions like refresh tokens, things like that, domain joining. And so this is really a more modern way to think about it and like going cloud first to provide that SSO solution, whether it's, from day 500 plus for an employee or day 0 plus.
Absolutely. I'm super curious because you kind of teased a little earlier that there's some new things. What's new with PSSO with macOS 26?
Yeah. So the biggest excitement that we have from macOS 26 for PSSO is in the fall, we launched support for Platform SSO in Setup Assistant. And we partnered really closely with the Jamf team to create this and test it during all the macOS 26 betas and going up to release. And so what this does is it allows you to send out a Mac to a user that is enrolled in Apple Business Manager. It goes through automated device enrollment. It brings up and says, hey, you need to enroll in Jamf, prompts for your Okta MFA. At that time, that Okta MFA, because that's your first touch and you're really just using a sign-in widget at the web view, that can be anything like identity verification. Your users can set up your factors. You can provide temporary access code to bootstrap that user. But then from there, after the device is enrolled into your Jamf instance, then you get all the Platform SSO profiles that can come down as part of your automated device enrollment and part of your pre-stage enrollments. And so from there, you can really bootstrap with your Okta credentials the local account on macOS and get them enrolled into Platform SSO all through Setup Assistant. So, there's a lot of confusion around notifications, when it pops up, when it doesn't, around macOS in a normal Platform SSO rollout. And so that helps relieve some of this because your users are locked into it too. So that they've set it up and they've set it up correctly from the start.
And my understanding is traditionally Platform SSO, when it comes to enrolling on the Mac, it's done after the user has been created. And that's where there can be some friction, both for an organization and for the end user. Is that correct? Like this is what that's trying to solve for?
Yep, exactly. So it kind of combines, in the past, it's been combined between device and user registration. And so from here, it separates them out into two different registrations. So you go through the device registration as part of Setup Assistant. And then once you're creating that user and they've got things like Touch ID set up, then you register the user part of that so that they can have that password synced ongoing to that user profile.
Yeah, I think with password syncing as well, obviously that's something we've cared a lot about with Jamf Connect Basic historically. And we've seen that if you go from not having a solution to keep your password in sync to now keeping it in sync, there's so many benefits. Obviously, end users love it because they have one less password to remember. And let's be honest, our brains are all a little clogged lately. But it also has the added advantage if you say you're running a help desk, all of a sudden your tickets that you're having to solve can dramatically decrease. What other benefits do you see with Platform SSO for organizations and for end users?
Yeah. So I think one of the big things is because it's built into the core OS and it's, leveraging known APIs, uh, and we test against those and when 27 comes out, we'll test against that as part of the betas. One of the big things that I see is the supportability of it. It's just part of the Mac OS frameworks that just work. And that's something that we can rely on, and it's a user experience that everyone is familiar with from a consumer. So you see, one of the industry trends we've seen over the last few years is what you do in your consumer life is blends into your enterprise and vice versa. So things like passkeys are really starting to get out there in the consumer world, and we're starting to see that more in the enterprise space as well. So things like that are interesting. So trying to keep it as consumer friendly as possible, and part of that is just keeping that native macOS experience in my mind. But like you said, Josh, it's one set of credentials is the big thing. People don't have to remember anything else, and then if you need to have it reset, as long as the device is connected to the network, you can authenticate with a reset password if you reset it from like your mobile device or the help desk.
I think those are all really helpful, and I love the summary. I feel like you touched on overall problems being solved, how it could help the organization. Josh, you threw in there how it could help with ticket reduction as well, and even for the user, like, I don't wanna know 50 different passwords. I don't even think I have the capacity to remember 50 different passwords. My favorite is when it's like you lock yourself out and then you go to set the new password and then it's like your new password can't be your old password. It's like, come on. I feel like that helps with that. bit on the user side too. Curious on the device side, what about device-bound SSO? Any updates there? Anything our listeners might find value in a conversation with you around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this has been one of the top discussions, and there's a lot of we've all been in the Apple ecosystem for years, and there's a lot of heavy lifting being done sometimes on some of their phrasing. And so one of the things that we've seen is Platform SSO gives you a framework to build upon for SSO. And where we started with Platform SSO at Okta was really the password syncing. Password syncing and the day zero setup are the two problems that we said are top of mind and we wanted to go after. And now our newest iteration of Platform SSO, and there's applicable parallels on the Windows side, but Platform SSO now has the capability to use device-bound SSO. So what device-bound SSO does is that's where we're leveraging the Platform SSO secure enclave backed keys that are created whenever a user registers into Platform SSO. And so we actually are taking the Okta session, the IDP session from the browser, and we're moving it more to the device level and securing it with those secure enclave backed keys. So you get the security benefit, and then you also get a user experience benefit because that device session can now be shared between any app, any authentication, and really gives you a more seamless experience while also being way more secure because it's hardware backed. If that session is hijacked and taken somewhere else, no one can use it because you don't have that secure enclave backed key as well.
Have you had a situation, or maybe, I mean, maybe you have seen it without maybe identifying information, like, let's say a session was hijacked, like, what would happen? Like, I would love to know in a scenario, like, 1, how it's prevented, but 2, like, "Oh my god, it happened." Like, talk to me about what that could look like and how that problem could get solved.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something that we see, session hijack, cookies being stolen is probably one of the top identity problems that we see across the industry. And what that looks like is, someone can take the cookies or the session used for Okta and you replay it on another device. And I've essentially stolen Josh's session and say, hey, I can now access Josh and his apps now. So, there's things that we've done as an industry to improve that. So one of the big things a couple of years ago was identity threat protection on the Okta side is looking at it from a continuous authentication side. Uh, and that's a great partnership again that we have with Jamf is the ability to share signals between the shared signals framework, which is an OpenID standard. So really it's becomes that story of how do you protect it holistically, not just, hey, Okta is going to protect you like 100%. It's Okta plus your MDM and your EDR. So really, if you look at like Jamf for Mac and Jamf Protect, a lot of those kind of frameworks and protections there help because you need an MDM, you need an EDR to kind of look for those, give you those protections and look for what's happening on the device and send that to Okta as the identity provider. And then vice versa. If a identity provider knows, hey, Dan's factors just got reset, something's probably a higher risk if you notice what's going on the device. So it really starts to become a snowball effect to help you protect those users' sessions. So it starts from device-bound sessions being, hardware backed and secured, and then, ongoing, it's still protecting that device, looking to see what's going on, making sure that there's nothing anomalous on the device or with the session itself.
So if I try to steal Josh's sessions on April 1st for April Fools, Okta will definitely catch it, and then Jamf Protect is going to take me down and report it. Got it. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
I'm a little scared to be on the same network as you, Kat, but I think it is important because so often we've had it drilled into us that watch out for phishing attempts, watch out for someone trying to steal, through whether it's an email or nowadays we see so many messages come through on our phone or social media, but they're trying to steal our credentials. And That, of course, still remains a concern. However, as we think beyond just a username and password, when we're thinking about device-bound SSO and shared signals framework, do we have a device that is managed? Is that first off? Is that trying to connect? And then, is there anything risky going on the device? And you build up these layers that really all serve to make sure that access isn't granted to someone who's malicious. And, if you're like me and happen to work with Cat, you don't have to worry about somebody jacking your session and doing malicious things with it. But I think that's really pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I would say, one step further is, Okta FastPass or passwordless solution, and really leaning into what does passwordless look like is something that's important to us. And so device-bound SSO is really kind of that next iteration of that, because FastPass for years has been able to send device context. So if Jamf marks the device as managed through a SCEP certificate, then we can say, hey, it's a managed device, you're allowed to continue. And device-bound SSO allows you to collect those signals no matter what has happened or what you authenticate with. So as long as you authenticate with device-bound SSO, you get all of that device context, and you're able to use it in the app sign-on policies as well. The other big thing that, I'd be remiss to mention is it really kind of completes that day zero story that we were just talking about. So when I was talking about, you go through that day zero and you have platform SSO and the user has to register. The other good thing is, out of the gate from day zero, that user has the ability to use device bound SSO right from the start.
Yeah, and we know zero touch deployment and what that setup process looks like for a new hire can have significant ramifications just for their overall experience. I mean, I think back to the first day I started at Jamf, which now is coming up on 5.5 years ago, but even then it was still a really great experience, and being able to take that even further, like, that's just awesome from an end user standpoint. Their first day at an organization, from whether it's their first Mac ever, in some cases, like, that feels so slick. Now, if I'm an organization and I'm thinking to myself, man, listening to Dan talk about platform SSO and simplified setup with Okta sounds awesome. What do I need to be looking at and considering to move forward? Like, what questions should I be asking? What resources should I be using?
Yeah, so we've got great resources both on the Okta and the Jamf side. So we've got help.okta. I've done a blog on platform SSO. We've got blogs on device bound SSO as well. And then Jamf has an entire microsite dedicated to platform SSO. So I strongly suggest checking that out. It's a great job setting that up and really going through the meaning of platform SSO, how to do it, things like that. And really, it's for how do you deploy it to your enterprise. I would say, you probably want to be on macOS 14 and above, but I'm thinking most people should probably be there by now. If you're not on 14 and above, hopefully, yeah, we'll see. But 14 and above, and then really from there, it's as long as it's a managed Mac, it's really simple to deploy. And it's more about how do you communicate to your end users that this is happening. They'll see a toast notification, and they'll have to go through that registration process of one time of really just verifying via MFA who they are. And then from there, it's, out of the user's hands, it's all set up.
If you're not on at least version 14, I'm praying for you. That's where I'm at. I'm just sending you IT prayers. So where can we learn more? You had mentioned, was it help.okta? Where else is there another resource if someone wanted to try it out? Is there a link to go try things?
Yeah, so if you reach out to your Okta account team, you can absolutely try this out. You can trial Okta Device Access and try everything that includes. Like I said, platform SSO, desktop MFA on macOS and Windows, and then device-bound SSO on macOS and Windows. There's lots of demo videos out there as well to kind of get an experience of get an idea of what the experience is.
If I don't have an Okta team yet, is there an info page where I can get started?
Yeah, you can just go to the okta.com page and go from there. And then, I'd say there's also some community driven blogs as well out there that do some great work for Okta and how to integrate things across different MDMs. So that's the imse.blog as well, is another great resource.
Speaking of the community, I did want to give a shout out to a subsection of the Mac admins community. There's a Platform SSO channel in Mac admins that is really fun to watch because there's so many folks who are just helping each other, because every organization has slightly different, whether it's goals or variables kind of going into how to actually set up Platform SSO, and in some cases maybe they're using an identity provider that's not Okta, in which case there's going to be varying levels of support. But to see the community come together like they have for Platform SSO has just been so impressive. So if you're on Mac Admin's Slack, hop in the Platform SSO channel. And if you're not on Mac Admin Slack, highly encourage you to get on there.
Yeah, I would say I actually, I think this is common knowledge. I lurk in Platform SSO channel, as well as a lot of the other ones, and really, well, that's kind of what I look at for what's the gold standard of what is the community looking for. And really, we monitor a lot of that chatter and say, hey, like, is there things we can do to help proactively? And from a platform SSO perspective at Okta, if you look at it, we launched password sync when platform SSO was first announced. And then we were the first IDP to announce and support the setup assistant platform SSO, which is huge to us. And I'll say, going forward, we're leaning further into platform SSO, like you see us doing with device bound SSO and kind of leveraging platform SSO keys as part of that key credential exchange. We're leaning further and further into platform SSO. And so we're really doubling down on things going forward.
I appreciate you listening to the community. I always think back, I can't remember the quote exactly from Steve Jobs mentioning, we don't do focus groups and have our users tell us what they want. We're going to come up with those ideas. And I think, to be perfectly fair, that can be a great strategy where you can surprise and delight your customers with innovative new ideas. However, it is so important to have such a really close pulse on what are the pressing, whether it's an obstacle or idea or just what would make our life easier. And so it's awesome to hear that that is front of mind for you.
Dan, is
Now,
there anything we didn't think to ask you that you want our listeners to be sure that they know?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think really the takeaway that I would want anyone who's watching this, and if you're watching in the background, well, you try out some MDM configs or whatever you're doing, if you're doing some yard work, all good. The one takeaway is that, Okta is really an identity provider that can help you on your devices, whether it's your macOS fleet, your Windows fleet. And really, we've got a lot of exciting things in this area, whether it's platform SSO, device bound SSO, advanced posture checks, which is OS query under the hood. Things like that are really exciting and really help you go from that end to end kind of fragmented MDM and then identities over here. Um, the most exciting conversations I have every day with customers are the ones where I get an identity team and an MDM team in the same room, and we start to kind of talk about how we can work together and have that end-to-end solution instead of fragmented silos between each system.
I love it. Dan, thank you
Yeah,
so much for being here.
of course. Thank you.
yeah, really appreciate it, Dan. And as we wrap up here, Kat, it's our another podcast in the books, second of 2026 already.
Time is moving.
It is moving. And just a reminder, as always, Jamf After Dark is a podcast from Jamf. It's copyright 2026, all rights reserved. Technical details and product offerings may change at any time. So check jamf.com for the latest info on our products and services.
You can reach out to us if you have questions or comments or suggested show topics. And of course, we love fan mail. Simply send a friendly email to info@jamf.com with the subject line Attention to the Podcast. We are also a sponsor of the Mac Admins Foundation, and several Jamfs are available on the Mac Admins Slack channel. And of course, if you need support, visit Jamf account to start a conversation or open a ticket and get your technical questions answered.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much, Dan, for joining us today. I hope our listeners feel like they walk away knowing a little bit more about the awesome benefits of PSSO and how Okta plus Jamf creates an incredibly secure and awesome experience. Special thanks to our audio and video engineers, Merlin and Martin, who help us look and sound great. Until next time, for Cat Garbis, I am Josh Thornton.
And for Josh Thornton, I'm Kat Garbis. We will catch you after dark again. Thank you. Good night. Good morning. And we'll catch you around next time.